Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Linda McGlone, and I'm with the Monterey County Health Department, and I'm the coordinator of STRIVE. Advance the slides here. I can't get the slide. Whoops, we already have a problem. Hold on one second. I want to just advance the slides. Oh, I have to click on it. Okay, take two. This is Linda McGlone. I'm the coordinator of the Youth Violence Prevention Program, which is STRIVE here at the Monterey County Health Department. I'd also like to thank Elizabeth Ruano of the Health Department, who provides invaluable technical assistance on these webinars. So for today's format, we have a live audience, and we will ask our live audience to be as quiet as they can, if possible, as we talk into the phone. And our audience that's online has been muted. So we will take your questions at the end. You can begin entering them in the chat box whenever you have a question, and we'll combine those with the questions from our live audience. Okay. So with that then, I'm going to turn it over to Deborah Dunn, who is the coordinator of the Employee Wellness Program. And she is going to introduce today's program. Go ahead, Deb.
Thank you. Welcome. My name is Deborah, and on behalf of the Health Promotion Partnership, I'd like to welcome everyone in attendance. We're excited to be offering our first webinar. Based on feedback, we know that sometimes it's hard to attend wellness classes if you have a remote work location or a large client list. We hope to have many more wellness classes in this format where we can use this technology. The wellness program has 7 areas of focus, and improving family life and parenting skills is one of those areas. From breastfeeding to helping kids succeed at school to planning financially for the college years, the wellness program has offered programming topics on strengthening families in all phases. We know that if you're worried about issues at home, it's hard to be fully present at work. Today we're lucky to have 2 presenters, Kathy Bauer and Linda McGlone. Kathy is the Director of Partners for Peace. She has worked with the wellness program for many years and has shared her knowledge about goal setting, stress management, resiliency, and happiness to countless of our county employees. Today she will share things parents can do to keep youth on a path to success. After Kathy, we'll turn the time over to Linda McGlone. Linda works for the county on STRIVE, which is Youth Violence Prevention Programs. She'll share things that we can do to improve our community and keep our neighborhoods safe and thriving. For those of you joining us at your desk, at the end of this program, probably after lunch, we'll email you a quick survey. We hope that you'll be able to fill that out and return it to the wellness program. And with that, I'll turn the time over to Kathy.
Right. Okay, great. I'll advance the slides for you. Let's see. We do have a poll, so you should see that on your screen. And if you would click the group that best describes your interest in this topic. And maybe I'll ask our live audience, how many parents do we have? Okay, everybody, a lot of parents. How many are just here as a community member? Okay. And how about you yourself are a young adult. You're between 18 and 24, that lucky group. All right, Gardenia. And is anybody here because they're active in the schools? No. And or they have a program where they work with youth on a professional basis? You do. Okay, terrific. Okay, well, our participants online have weighed in. And we have a lot of folks who work with youth professionally. Oops, I need to, there we go. You know, for some reason, I can't get it to display.
There it is.
Oh, there's you. Okay.
No,
there we go. Let's go back to that. Okay, there we go. A lot of folks working with youth professionally, and then our second largest group is parents, and probably some crossover to folks who are active in the school. So This should be good. And now with that, we'll turn it over to Kathy Bauer.
Okay, it's my pleasure. This is a passion of mine, working with parents, because this is a quote that I strongly believe: a strong family unit is one of the best protections against gang association and other antisocial behaviors demonstrated by our youth. And that was by the former District Attorney Liz Thomas, who worked with us at Silver Star. And that's the nuts and bolts right there. We've got to figure out how to strengthen our family units as an antidote to violence in gangs. Okay, so today what we're going to do is talk briefly about identify why kids join gangs, because if we understand that, then we have a better chance of countering it. We'll discuss parenting strategies to prevent gang violence and how to keep kids safe. And Linda's going to talk about, Linda and I will talk about community resources to help parents and identify what communities and neighborhoods can do. Because we were talking earlier, it is important, it has to come, the community's got to get involved, we've got to get involved in schools, and the parents at the home front. So, okay, I did that, right? Okay. All right. So this is a quick one. How many were involved in sororities or fraternities? Think back to your growing up. The Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts. Gangs, quote unquote, are not abnormal. You know, fraternities, lodges, sporting organizations, political groups. I mean, there's a picture of a rush. You know, we have colors, secret societies, demand for conformity and loyalty. You know, you have to meet certain membership criteria. There's a hierarchy. There's a competition with other organizations, and there's always recruitment as part of the formula. So what distinguishes a gang, the negative side of a gang? This is from Second Chance, a slide from them. They're very active in the community and gang prevention and intervention. But basically, the difference is that gangs, street gangs, involve illegal activity. And most of the gangs in our area, there's about 3,000 active gangs, 3,000 to 5,000, we don't really know all of it, but their focus is illegal activity, mostly making money through drugs and prostitution. So that's the difference. But the motivations are very similar. So why do kids join gangs? Here's a scary looking person, right? He was part of the roundup for the Black Widow years ago. And look at him. So why do kids join gangs? Poor sense of family. They're looking for belonging, commitment, acceptance, a search for love, structure, and discipline. It always cracks me up is, you know, when parents say, I can't provide discipline. Well, excuse me, you know, gangs are pretty tough about the rules and the regulations. So we need to make sure that our homes display lots of love and connection. And we'll get more on that in a bit. Feeling marginalized, the need for recognition, power, self-worth, and status. What happens is basically kids join for one of two sets of reasons. There's either a pull, and that's one of them. They're getting pulled because the gang gives them acceptance, love, structure, and they're pulled because they get status, they feel important, and they get lots of excitement. If you have a child that's addicted to adrenaline, and that is type C or T depending on what you're reading, we need to get kids involved in high-risk activities because they want that. Kids are bored. When I talk to kids, there's not a lot for kids to do. So the gangs offer that excitement and the drive and lots of other things. Okay, so some of the other reasons are the pushes. The need for physical safety and protection. I've talked to so many kids that say, you know, I don't have a choice. I have to join one side or the other to feel safe walking to school in the morning. So some kids have that feeling that they need that protection in school, on the streets. To make money, that's where the lure of drugs, and the gangs do a great job of having kids do small little things to begin with and get a little money, and then they come back, and they're buddies, and they really make these kids feel important. And then pretty scary to me is it's a family neighborhood tradition. There's a young boy already initiated into the gang. Fortunately, that's not a high incidence, but that is a reality. So what can parents do? The key thing is a strong sense of family. How do we do that? Do you tell your kids you love them every day? That's critical. In the Parent Project, which is a 12-week program for parents of strong-willed or out-of-control youth, that's been in Monterey County, initiated by Strengthening Parent Project. Partners for Peace. There's a 6-step plan that parents learn to deal with difficult behaviors. And you know what the first step is? I love you so much that I can't let you destroy your life by going down this path. How do you tell your kids you love them every day? And I want you to think about that. Is it touch? You know, when you've got a big, tall teenager at 16, they probably don't want to be hugged. But maybe they do. But maybe a high five, a note, the hair, a touch on the hair. They've got to know that you love them to the depths of their heart. Do you hold family discussions and involve them in important family meetings? What would family meetings teach kids in terms of countering gang lure? Well, they'd feel important. When we had family meetings weekly, my son ran the best meeting because he always kept us on agenda. You can tell I like to talk, so he'd shut me up quickly. Mom, that's not on the agenda. So they learn leadership skills, they learn communication skills, and probably key is they learn that parents listen to them, and there are some issues negotiable in terms of what families can do together. Eating family meals together. The research is really clear on kids' success at school when we're eating at least 3 to 4 meals a week together. And it doesn't have to be dinner, it could be breakfast. And that's kind of this is what our family does. We're trying to create a family identity. What is your family rituals around holidays and birthdays? Today is St. Patrick's Day. When I grew up, everything was green at our house. My mother dyed green pears, we had all the protocol, and I was cracking up because I talked to my kids who are both down in LA, and they had a St. Patrick's Day dinner together on Sunday night. And I was thrilled that they were keeping that going. And I'm sure they're all wearing green today. I do know that. My daughter's name is Erin, by the way, so. Okay. Does your child know your family history and the importance of family? I love this picture. It's not the clearest. But this is a picture of a mom who has just read a letter to her kids out loud in the Strengthening Families program about how scared she is if they use drugs and alcohol, how it will affect their life. And of course it starts with, I love you so much when you were born, and it goes on. And her 3 sons came around her and surrounded her just after she was reading the letter. And it's very typical. There's not a dry eye in the place when families do this kind of. So we need to communicate. I would like to invite you to think about how do you communicate to your kids that family is vital in any way, shape, or form. Do you have family reunions? Again, we talked about traditions, family meetings. How do you communicate that? Because it's because the gang becomes a family for those kids that don't have it. I had a student in the Step Up mentoring program, and I could see why he was a gang member. His mother and father divorced. The mother took off with another woman, and then the dad exited. So this poor kid, 14, was living with a cousin to cousin to cousin to cousin. No family identity. And so the gang lured him in by providing structure, routines, consistency. Unfortunately, we lured him back. He started to come to Silver Star every day, and he participated in the 9-month Step Up program. And he continued after the program was over. He said, I feel safe here. I want to come here. Can I come here? I said, absolutely. He volunteers, and he's with us all the time. Now, the other thing to look at is discipline. Now, obviously, the gangs provide very rigid rules. You do what you're told. So in parenting, there's some really clear research, and I would encourage you, we're not going to have a chance to go in depth on this today, but there's 3 styles of parenting. There's the brick wall parenting style, my way or the highway, no negotiation, you just do what I say. Then there's the jellyfish parent who gives in, nags, yells a lot. Kids feel that they can get away with things by manipulating in that type of environment. If they just push hard enough, mom will give in, and I'll get to do what I want. So rules don't count. What we're going for is called the backbone. That's why. Did you wonder why the backbone picture was there? Backbone style of parenting, firm and fair. So we want non-negotiable rules. An example of a non-negotiable rule would be you go to school on time every day prepared. An example of, but we also want negotiable rules. Why would we want negotiable rules? We want negotiable rules so that kids learn that their voice is important. Non-negotiable, everybody does chores in the house because we want kids to learn skills and contribute, right? Negotiable, when you do your chore and which chore you do. We'll have a discussion about that, and then we'll rotate so everybody learns new skills. I had a mom of a runaway 13-year-old who called me and said, why would she run away? I don't make her do anything. She has her own bedroom, her own TV. She eats dinner in her own bedroom. Why would she run away? Does she feel important in your family? If she has no expectations, if they don't eat together as a family? No. So she took off and she was on the streets and she ended up in a gang. So there are possibilities of getting kids back, but today is about of preventing gang violence. I love this one. This is from Hagar, one of my favorites. Why do I always have to discipline our children? You're the mean Viking. You're tough as nails. You can face down Attila the Hun and not flinch, but you don't even try to discipline your own children. Why? Why? They might not like me if I do. You know, parenting is the toughest job you'll ever do. There's no manual with parents when, you know, for being a parent when you get your baby. But we're not our kids' friends. We can be friends when they're 21 and up, but we are there to provide structure, love, and discipline. And what is the definition of discipline to you? Teaching, right? All right, so what happens? Inevitably and hopefully your kids are going to break the rules. Believe it or not, why would I say hopefully your kids are going to break the rules? So they get to learn that you're firm and fair at a very young age, that you do follow through, that you do mean what you say and say what you mean. So you want little infractions. I love it, but when a kid shoplifts at age 6, and that happens, right? They have sticky fingers. How the parent reacts at age 6 will make all the difference at 16. When the parent takes the child by the hand, goes back to the store, makes the child apologize, returns the item, and then makes the child earn the money for the item, that makes a big message. This is not okay in our family, and there will be consequences, as opposed to getting home and finding an item that you know that you didn't pay for and say, oh, isn't that cute? Look, all right, no problem. We need to start small when the kids are little. So one of the keys is do not rescue your kid from consequences. And I'd like to point out and emphasize it's not the severity of the consequence that teaches the lesson, but the assuredness that it's going to happen. Now, we don't have any police officers in here, so you don't have to worry, but how many people occasionally speed? I would guess, yeah, okay, our audience is, most people are raising their hands. Why? Because not every time you speed do you get a ticket. If every single time you went over 65, somebody was waiting and gave you a ticket, would you ever speed anymore? No, we wouldn't. So it's what's called the Las Vegas principle. If kids keep trying, that's jackpot. They keep trying and trying to go over the line, and every once in a while, parents don't follow through, and bingo. And in psychology, that's intermittent reinforcement, which is very powerful. So we have to be consistent. So small consequences for small offenses, save your bigger consequences for the bigger offenses. And absolutely, the key is to follow through respectfully. If you have a teenager that came home late, the curfew is 10, and they wander in at 11:30, Do you scream and yell? No. You say to your child, excuse me, I see you've chosen not to go out this weekend. I didn't choose that. Excuse me, what was the clear rule? If you're not home at our curfew time, our agreed upon time, you don't get to go out either the next night or the weekend. You've chosen that. And that my job as a parent is to implement our decision and our agreements. And they look at you, and of course they're mad. Don't worry about that. And don't engage. Okay. Okay, yeah. All right. The need for recognition, power, self-worth, and status. Absolutely key. We talked about the importance of love and affection. I mean, think about it. Do you leave little notes under the pillow? When my daughter was 12, we did not have the best relationship. She had, many 12 and 13-year-olds go internally, inside. That's very developmentally typical. So we weren't communicating very well. So I started writing her notes. Sweetheart, love that you did well in your test today. How you doing? And she would write notes back. And then I got a note about a week later, Mom, let's keep doing this. I kind of like this. When she went off for college and I looked through her drawers to clean out her room, guess what I found? All the notes. So they were an important way for us to communicate during a rocky time. The other thing that I made sure with my daughter was I asked her every night when I'd put her to bed, give her a back rub, I said, sweetie, I know you're not interested in talking to me right now, but I want 3 people's names that you will talk to if you have a problem. Okay, I talked to Aunt Peggy, I talked to Carol. I need 3, sweetie. So she'd think about it and let me know. So that's the importance of taking a parenting class or doing parenting readings so you know that this is typical development for a 12 and 13-year-old. But that doesn't mean you just let it go. You develop strategies that will help you get through to your child. And it may not be you, it may be one of the others. I would call up a friend occasionally and say, you're on my daughter's list. Would you take her out for a cup of coffee or hot chocolate this weekend and just chat, make sure everything's okay? And they would do that. So it's important to figure out praise, effort, and persistence. This is absolutely vital, and this is fairly new in the parenting research in probably the last 10 years. It comes from Carol Dweck at Stanford. And the concept here is if a child does well. In fact, last night we were at a parent project support group meeting, and one of the kids was the student of the month, little 8th grader. And I said, oh, that's great. So tell me which was your most improved subject. She said math. And I said, well, how did you do that? How did you improve it? She said, well, I took tutoring and I did my homework every night and I really worked hard last month. I said, wow, good for you. You worked hard, you were persistent, you got help, and look at the results. You can do anything you want. As opposed to the mom, I was trying to model for the mom said, yeah, we're so proud of her, she did great. Well, and the one thing you do not want to say to your kid, you are so smart, that's why you got the B. Why? Because they're going to get confronted with a problem that they don't know how to do, and they feel frustrated, and they're going to say, well, they all told me I was really smart, I should be able to do this, I give up. Instead of saying, no, I've learned that I can persist, I can get help, I can work hard and do anything. That's what we're going for. So really focus on praising effort and persistence. Tell them how important they are to you. Figure out how to put that in words all the time. As I mentioned, I have 2 kids in LA, and we talk every Sunday night. And I texted them this morning. Can you text? I had a dad in summer parent project class who had just gotten out of prison, had no relationship with her 14-year-old daughter because he'd been in prison for 5 years. And he said, I desperately want to be an influence in my child's life. And I said, okay, we got to start with the relationship first. You can't be having take your kid out for coffee and say, you can't do this, this, and this, right? Is the kid going to listen? Absolutely not. So we got him to start little by little. You know how he started? Texting. All he did every day, I love you, sweetie. I really missed you. Have a great day. He did that for a couple of weeks. It took 2 weeks, and the daughter texted back. Thanks, Dad. That was it. then got her to agree to go out for hot chocolate or whatever they went out for. And then a month or 6 weeks after that, he got permission to take her to Santa Cruz Boardwalk. And he said, I almost crashed the car because as we're talking, my daughter looked at me, I'm driving, I love you, Dad. Thanks for not giving up. It took a while, but he kept with it. Help kids succeed in school. Kids who feel good about themselves and feel empowered because we've done the other things have another group of peers that value school. You're so lucky if your child is affiliated with a group of people who value school. I don't know if you listened to the WASP, the radio show on NPR, and they did a series the other day about a young man who said, he made it. Out of the ghetto, out of the gangs, he made it. And he said, one of the reasons I made it, I got lucky, my girlfriend hit the books. And in high school, she made me study because she valued school. So make sure your kids are surrounded by people who value school. It really helps. And how do you communicate that you value school? You show up. You always go to parent-teacher conference. You go to back-to-school night. You show up. One of my kids was doing very well in school. You don't have to go to the parent night. Well, of course I do. I want to hear how great you're doing. And I want to hear if there are any problems, Chase. Mom, Chase, I'm going. It's my job. So, and kids don't want you to go. Believe me, they don't want you to show up because they might learn something. But show up anyway. Show up to sports events. Take them on college campuses. I mean, every kid, by the time they're in high school, should have been on college campus just for fun. Go to a basketball game. Every vacation we ever did, we drove to the local college campus just to drive through, go to the bookstore, buy a pennant or a pen. That was it. But they were going to go to college, and they knew it. Have a pickle jar. Pickle jar is by the door, the old glass jar, and you bring money every day, and you put it in the coins in your pocket, and you say, this is for your college fund. Once a month, you take it to the bank, deposit it with your child into the college fund. Boy, what a powerful message. They're seeing it every day. They're hearing you once a month, and there's no question. Now, that pickle jar, unfortunately, will not pay for the entire education, but it will send a strong message. The other one that's fun is ask your child to teach you a skill. Why would that be important? Especially as a teenager. Increase their self-worth, their status, their sense of, ooh, I know something Mom and Dad don't know. They don't think you know anything at teenage years, anyway. So, and we are blessed with computers. They can teach us Instagram, the next computer app, or the program, whatever it is. Ask them. Sit down with them. If your kid loves video games, now I hate them personally, but I've asked, will you teach me this game? I don't get it. I want to understand it. And after I learned, I would say, okay, thank you for teaching me. You can be honest. That's not a big deal. Okay, so next. So how can parents create some excitement and reduce boredom? Notice what, a lot of this, an operative word in this, which should be notice. Notice what your kid is interested. What do they gravitate to? The computer, acting, music, sports. Do they kick the ball around? Kids need to explore all sorts of interests when they're young. It's pretty difficult to take a 15 or 16-year-old and teach them soccer for the first time. They're too intimidated. But if they learn the basics as they're little, so when kids are young, expose them to a whole variety. Let them try out aerial theater. Let them try out in various soccer games. But one of the things is we got to teach kids we're not quitters in our family. So if you sign them up for a 6-week program, say the deal is we're going to try it for 6 weeks or whatever the duration is, and then after that time, if you don't want to do it, you never have to do it again. There's a great story about Joe Montana. If you remember, one of the best 49ers quarterback. He came home in high school after a particularly tough game and threw his gear in the corner and said, I quit. I'm never playing football again. And his dad looked at him. He said, our families are not quitters. You finish the season. That's your commitment. Then you never have to play again. Well, the story is history. He ended up one of the best because if his dad had said, okay, it's okay, you can quit. So make sure that when your kid joins something, to make an agreement for a reasonable amount of time. Volunteer as a family. There's lots of opportunities. What a great message. And to get to know your community. Do community cleanups. There's lots of beach cleanups. There's lots of spots. Go to United Way, and they have a section on volunteerism. Part-time work. I mean, encourage kids to walk dogs, to babysit. I have a kid that takes care of my cats when I'm gone, and he absolutely loves it. He's 14 and has no other way to earn money. So you teach kids to be entrepreneurs, what you're comfortable with. Talked about household chores. Every kid should do it. Talked about school support and monitoring internet activity. One of the things, there's so much cyberbullying and activity, and if you ever want to get scared to death, go online and YouTube and see the number of gang-related YouTubes and what is on there for kids to see. Computers should be in public places in your household. They should not be in kids' bedrooms so that you can walk by and see. Yes, they'll probably flip the screen very quickly as you're going by, but you at least have a chance. You pay the bills. One of the things I would strongly recommend for cell phones, for computers, you need to have the passwords. I'm not giving you the password. Okay, then give me the phone. I work with probation closely, and it's a crack up to hear some of the stories. No, my kid's not a gang member. Total denial. Give me the phone. The probation officer gets the password, and here are sex texting, lots of gang-related paraphernalia, photographs. The parent can't deny it. But the parent didn't know because the parent didn't inspect the phone or any of the media the child was using. And then there's been a lot about the impact of violence, seeing violence, violent videos, violence in the home, and even in the streets. The police officers, about a year ago, initiated, they said when there was a crime scene and a death, young parents would take young kids, put them on their shoulder to view the scene. That's post-traumatic stress syndrome. Kids can be they can have changed their brain. So we need to limit the exposure of violence to particularly young kids. I'd like to do it to all kids, but particularly young kids. So kind of think about what you're watching. I was appalled. I was in a movie recently, a particularly violent movie. I can't remember what it was, but there was a 3-year-old running up and down the aisle. Thinking, I'm sorry, either get a babysitter or don't come to the movie with a 3-year-old when there's shooting and blood going all over the place. So be mindful. Okay, so need for protection. We used to have parent patrols, and I think they're starting up again. Walk your kids to school. And the parent patrols used to have parents in each of the signals to monitor kids and to keep an eye out on what's going on, to reduce bullying, to increase the sense of security for kids. So the monitors were able to report it. Volunteer at your kid's classroom. If you can come into work a little late once a month, once a week, you could walk a kid to school, you could go into the classroom, and you could hang out and really find out what's going on. If you have middle school kids and you have not been to your middle school class at school, please go. Go at lunchtime. You will be amazed at the number of jostling and pushing. It's a little scary. But I say that because I want you to understand how stressed your kid may be when he comes home. It's tough. When my daughter entered middle school, I tried to pick her up at the bus stop, and you can tell I kind of like to talk, so I would ask her all sorts of questions. As a good mom, I thought. And she just screamed at me one day and she said, "Mom, no more questions, I can't stand it." So I shut up. After we got home, we talked a little, we got her something to eat, and when she was calmed down, I said, "Sweetie, What's going on? Do you have any idea how stressful that bus is? People are shoving people, they're bullying, they're calling names. I hate it. And then you come in and pick me up and ask me all these questions. I can't deal with it. Okay, I'll make a deal. I will not say a word. We'll put on some quiet music. That's it. Okay. So that's why I say go to middle school, understand what they're dealing with, so that our home needs to be a quiet sanctuary. And they shouldn't be doing homework the moment they walk home. I mean, they need a little break. Don't let kids hang out. We need to know where kids are going, what they're doing, who they're with, and the parents. And if your kid is saying, I'm just going to hang out, ask them the 5 whys. Where are you going? What are you going to do? Well, who you're with. And then, this may sound mean, but actively supervise, do spot checks. Show up. If they say they're going to Jose's house, every once in a while, show up at Jose's house. They'll be mortified. That's okay. And if they are at Jose's house, give them a high five. You just put money into the trust account. I'm more apt to say yes the next time you ask me to do something because your trust level just went up. You told me the truth. I can believe you. Now, if they're not where they say they were, then the consequences come into play. So we need to start holding kids accountable and know that they have to know that we will do periodic spot checks. Know your kids' friends and family and their families. I think cell phones in some respects have made it much easier because you have the cell phone list. You've got all the numbers of all their friends, and then get the parents' numbers because their numbers are different. This is critical if there's a runaway situation. You need to know what the possibilities are. You might even save your kid's life if you know that. And then another thing with keeping kids safe, be a good observer. Remember I mentioned notice was an operative word? Observe your kids. Changes in behavior are a sign of depression, perhaps, drug use, perhaps, wannabe gang member. So if you start to notice that names of your kids are changing, their dress are changing, their behavior, their attitude. Now, some attitude is inevitable in teen years, right? You have to have that attitude a little bit, tolerate a little bit of it. But if you notice major changes, investigate. Start asking. And listen to your kid. All right, another key is to be open and self-aware. You know when you're completely stressed out because it's income tax time and you're taking care of a sick parent and you've got a baby, you're completely stressed out and unavailable to a young kid or a teenager. Sit them down, say, look, I'm sorry, sweetheart, this is a very difficult week. I need your help. Be honest, because you're going to yell more than you probably do. That kid, he needs to know it's not their fault. It's life circumstances. Now, you can't pull this card all the time, but occasionally you can be really honest with your kid. I remember my son had a very severe case of chickenpox when he was 2, and my 4-year-old was a mess. She was misbehaving and, being mean to her, all sorts of stuff was going on. And then I realized this, and I said, okay, what's going on? So when things are going haywire, one of the first questions to ask yourself is, when's the last time I spent one-on-one time with this kid? And I realized I hadn't. Where was all the attention going? To the little brother. So I pulled her aside at night, and we read the story, and I said, sweetie, I know this is really hard on you. Dad will be home on Saturday, and you and I are going to go out, and we're going to do whatever you want Saturday morning. I'm hoping Chase will be better, but whether he's not or not, it doesn't make any difference. And we went to the calendar and circled Saturday. Each morning she'd get up, when's Saturday, Mom? And her behavior wasn't perfect, but boy, it changed radically because she realized she was going to get her dues. And she actually became a little bit more helpful. So I would really strongly encourage you to do some reading, take some classes around the ages and stages of development, because there are certain things that kids do that are absolutely normal. Like 13-year-olds withdraw and have attitudes. 8-year-olds tend to cling to moms. Everybody knows the terrible twos, right? So there's certain developmental aspects that you as a parent, if you learn those, it gives you a little more. When my son went to middle school in 6th grade, a pretty responsible kid, he got detention. I said, what? Mom, I forgot my gym locker combination. And I was too embarrassed to go to the office and get it, so I took detention instead. So at first, what is my reaction? Chase! And then I thought, okay, what have you learned, Kathy? You just learned that the teen brain is rewiring and pruning off, and, early adolescents, they're brain dead. They really are. And they're forgetful, and it's not their fault. So I explained that to him. I said, okay, this is what's going on, bud. That doesn't excuse your behavior. So the motto in our family was always, we've got a problem, we need a plan. So what's the plan? Not to forget stuff. So we did the brainstorming, and he worked it out. And that was a great life lesson for him, right? Okay, I got to be aware of what's going on, and I got to plan ahead. Be a positive role model. That's a tough one. We got to have kids watch us manage stress, manage the calendar, plan ahead, so kids see how we reinforce, how we talk to kids, how we talk to our spouses. When we make a mistake, what do you say? Oh, what an idiot. Or, I made a mistake, what am I going to do differently next time? And sometimes you actually talk out loud so kids hear you and how you respond to mistakes. And your kid hears you, okay, mistakes are okay as long as you learn something from them. And mom's going to learn a plan, and then so I'm not as afraid as a young child or a teenager to admit, I screwed up. How many of you, when you were young, went underground and covered everything up? Yeah, I certainly did. So it's more important that kids feel comfortable coming to us saying, yeah, I screwed up, Mom, and know that we'll hold them accountable, yes, but it's not the end of the world, and we're going to figure out a plan to prevent this from ever happening. Get help. So there's lots of options for help. Community Human Services does positive parenting program for parents only of ages 2 to 12. They also do a program called DAISY, Drug and Alcohol Intervention for Youth, and they do counseling, family counseling. Partners for Peace offers 3 different programs. You have a little half sheet there that describes the 3 programs. The Strengthening Families program is an evidence-based 8-week program for parents and their kids ages 10 to 16. We offer classes quarterly. We try to split the class up for 10 to 13-year-olds and then 14 to 16-year-olds. But that's a great class for family bonding, communication, problem solving, and kids learn drug resistance skills and peer resistance skills. The Parent Project we call is more hardball parenting. It's for parents only of out of control or strong-willed teens, kids that kind of already stepped over the line. And we do have a youth mentoring program. So there's our website and phone number. Give us a call. And then, of course, Second Chance is a local organization that provides classes for kids, parents, and counseling, tattoo removal. The Catholic Charities also does tattoo removal. And here's some other resources. When in doubt, call 211. That's our county information and referral. But you can always call us, and we'll try to hook you up with the right resource. There is help out there. We just have to be aware to notice changes, to learn what the stages are, what to expect, and then how to be a backbone parent. So Linda will now talk a little bit about communities and neighborhoods, because we need to create families and neighborhoods that value kids. The kids keep kids safe so they won't be pulled toward the gang. So Linda is with Strive and the Monterey County Health Department, as Deborah said. If you have any questions, type them in, or if you have any questions as we're going, write it down, and we'll talk about those at the end.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Kathy. That was really helpful. And you remind me that I had a child screaming at me at one point that I was the meanest mom in Monterey County. And so I remember it's not easy. Good parenting is an essential strategy to reducing violence in a community. But what if you're doing your part to do the best parenting that you possibly can, but the neighborhood itself is unsafe? You're putting your child in an unsafe environment, but that happens to be where you live. What can you do to improve the environment in which you're raising a family? So I've entitled this something to the effect that neighbors are what make a neighborhood safer. So I'm going to suggest 3 things that are really pretty easy to do that you can do to make your neighborhood safer. The first is get to know your neighbors. The second is clean up neglected areas. And finally, trim trees and bushes. So let's start with getting to know your neighbors. Oops, I skipped one. Let's go back. One of the things that makes for a stronger neighborhood is to increase neighborhood cohesion by getting to know your neighbors. Talk to your neighbors. When you know your neighbors and they know you, you strengthen the connections between community members. Talking to one another, sharing information, saying hi to people, especially teens who may feel uncomfortable in the neighborhood. All of that strengthens the fabric of a neighborhood. And when you strengthen that fabric, you've got a stronger, tighter neighborhood that's better able to resist outside or criminal influences. Another aspect of getting to know your neighbors is building social capital. Do somebody a favor. Ask for help. Social capital is the benefits that you get from cooperating and from working together between individuals and groups. It's a little bit of I scratch your back and you scratch mine. When you develop social capital among neighbors, folks begin to look out for one another and you build trust. Maybe because I know you, I'm willing to call the police to report a property crime if someone's vandalizing your garage, because I believe that you're looking out for my house as well. Clean up neglected areas. Areas that look neglected appear to have no ownership. No one is there to enforce the rules of good behavior. So vandals assume that there's no penalty for further damaging a place that someone seems to care about. And you'll see this in an abandoned house. There'll be graffiti, and then the graffiti turns into kids hanging out there. Maybe you have kids that meet now in the abandoned house because no one cares. The area is neglected. This is the broken window theory that suggests that bigger crime starts small with things like graffiti and then go on to larger crime if no one intervenes to clean that area up and to claim it and to give it a sense of ownership. You can start with your own yard, perhaps, by cleaning up. Another very simple thing to do that tends to lower crime is to keep your trees and bushes trimmed. You want to eliminate places where people can hide. Another aspect is to take back areas that are misused. So if you have heavy bushes where kids go to drink or get high, trim the bushes back, trim the trees up above eye level. The picture on the left is Natividad Creek Park, and you can see it's pretty untrimmed. There's a lot of bushes. Whatever took place in that area on the left would not be visible to people walking by. So the city Public Works Department trimmed all the trees and bushes in Natividad Creek Park. So if you walk that path now, you'll see that the trees are trimmed up above eye level and you can see for a distance. See and be seen. That's what makes a safe neighborhood. The bush on the right, this picture is a bit deceptive, but the bush leans into the sidewalk, and every night when I walk my dog, I have to go by that bush, and I'm always afraid there's someone on the other side of the bush waiting to jump out at me. So again, keeping trees trimmed and bushes trimmed so that you can see clearly. So violence prevention, I think we've learned, requires individual responsibility. Good parenting is essential. I think Kathy made a great case for that in the relationship of how to keep kids safe, keeping them out of gangs. And then also that parents establish norms that reject violence. Do you fight in front of your kids? Kathy talked a little bit about fighting in front of a toddler when their brain is still developing and how that actually physically changes their brain architecture. Maybe you don't have a big house. Walk out to the park. Go for a walk on the sidewalk. But try not to fight in front of your kids. And also model resolving conflicts peacefully, without bad language, without threats, without screaming. Because you're your parent, you're your children's first teacher. So they'll learn how to behave from you. But I think it's important to say that to succeed at reducing youth violence here in Salinas, we need a layered approach. And that layered approach also includes changes to organizations and systems. So I gave you the example of the Public Works Department that began trimming their trees to improve visibility and cut down on crime in that park. Schools, changes in schools. Maybe some of you have children whose school is providing PBIS, positive behavioral intervention and supports, or an anti-bullying program such as Olveus. Those are changes that a PTA, PTO can request, can lobby for from your child's school to teach them how to behave in a nonviolent way, and also to make the school safer. One of the interesting things about the bullying prevention program that we have in Salinas City Elementary School District is that we've seen a significant change among the girls who now feel safer at school. And when I told the principal that, he said, I think our attendance is going up. And so you can just imagine the child whose stomach hurts, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to go to school, are they getting picked on at school? So those changes within the city, within your schools, are big changes that can make for a safer neighborhood. And I've tried to suggest a couple of environmental changes that you as an individual can make to decrease the likelihood of crime occurring on your property or in your neighborhood. So I hope you'll give those ideas a try and help us create a healthy and thriving Salinas. So with that, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. I want to thank Deborah for inviting the county employees, and we hope you enjoyed this webinar. And I want to thank Kathy Bauer for her parenting presentation, which was, of course, par excellence. And did you have something you wanted to say? Oh, we should do questions. Right.
Does anybody have any questions?
Do you have any questions? We don't have any questions from our online folks. You can type something in. I'll give you a second. Any questions from our group here? Kathy, you did a great job.
Well, summarizing parenting in 45 minutes is a challenge. But you're right. We've got to create that strong bond, connectedness with other parents. That's another benefit of parent classes, is that you get to meet the other parents in your school. We deal with a lot of truancy at Silver Star, and there's a lot of kids, as you mentioned, don't want to go to school because they're being bullied. Well, if you're a parent involved in school, you understand that, you can help influence that, you can be a monitor, you can get to know kids. So we can work on many levels. It starts in the home, positive role modeling, noticing your kid and what's going on for them, setting clear rules. You know, that's love and limits is what we're going for at home, and positive communication. And then in the neighborhood, get to know your neighbors. And that, again, is the value of sports and all those things. When you get out on the soccer field, you know, you get to know all the different players and who you don't want your kid to go over to their house, maybe. You know, you've got some of those. It's okay for Tommy to come over to our house, but no, sweetheart, I'm not comfortable with you going to Tommy's house. Because you know they've got a couple older teenagers, and there's some questionable things going on there. But you wouldn't know that unless you were out in the soccer field watching the older brothers and sisters and how they get along, and you don't want your kid exposed to that. So there's lots we can do, and I'm hoping we can be proactive. So if you have any questions, you've got mine, I think my number on the slide about help, and we'd love to talk to you. If you want a class in your church or school, we can work on arranging that. And if you want, anyway.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you all for joining us. I'll try that again. And hearing no questions, I'll end today's webinar. We hope you'll take a moment to fill out the survey that follows. It's really brief. And then watch for a questionnaire from Deborah Dunn from the Employee Wellness Program. We have recorded today's session, and so we will make that recording available on the Health Department website. And also we have Maya Carroll here today, and she is recording this to put on what website? The county channel. Okay, so lots of opportunities to share this with friends. So thank you very much. Have a great day, and happy St. Patrick's Day.